This is the author. We're in chapter 7 now, and I hope you're liking it so far. If you really like it a lot, please subscribe. I would very much appreciate that. Alright, here we go. Chapter 7. It was getting late, and the sun was setting, and you could hear the crickets start singing their song. Mr. Garrett looks at Joshua, Aricia, and Serenity. Well, I hope you kids learned your lesson. All of a sudden, we hear a growling noise, and it came from Mr. Garrett's stomach. Well, kids, I guess it's time to eat. When we heard that, we all started laughing. So we walked to the dining room and ate dinner. While we were eating some ribs and potatoes, Joshua remembered something he wanted to ask Aricia. Aricia, how do you celebrate Christmas? Joshua, of course we celebrate the day Jesus was born. I mean, do you decorate trees and lights and ornaments? Joshua said. No, Joshua, why would you do that? That's what my people from my world do every year. Aricia said, surprised. Really? That's what they do? Okay, Aricia, picture this. A huge pine tree in the middle of the ballroom, standing straight up as if it were in the ground. Shiny different colored glass balls that you can hang on the tree. Then hang some candles on the tree far enough away from the branches to illuminate all the colors of the ornaments and to keep the tree from catching on fire. Now, Aricia, do you see that? Yes, Joshua, I do. That sounds beautiful. You also decorate your house with silver and gold, red, green ribbons around the house. Oh, wow, Joshua, that sounds great. And underneath the tree, you put wrapped gifts underneath the tree for people you care about. Aricia's face turns red. You say people we care about? Yes, Aricia, that's what I said. You know your friends, your family? Aricia saying silently, okay, Joshua, let's have a Christmas like yours. It sounds like a lot of fun. You know, Joshua, I'm glad you got to meet my father before he died. Aricia, your father was a really good man. Aricia starts weeping a little, and the other people at the table turn and look at her. Aricia says to Joshua, thank you, Joshua. It means a lot. Everyone at the table begins smiling. Serenity leans over and tells something to Aricia's ear. Aricia nods her head in agreement. Aricia looks towards Joshua. Aricia asks Joshua, so, who are you going to get a present for? Mr. Garrett, on the other end of the table, puts his hand on his head when he heard Aricia ask that question to Joshua. Both girls were awaiting his answer. Well, Aricia, Serenity, I guess both of you. When the two girls heard this, they both had a disappointed look on their face. You could see Mr. Garrett shaking his head, and Madam Chelsea leans over and says something to Mr. Garrett. Mr. Garrett replies, not a clue. After Joshua answered that question, Aricia stood up from the table and said to Joshua, that's not what we wanted to hear. Aricia continues, you're just a stupid boy. Aricia sighs, okay, Joshua, I'm sure we will get a nice gift from you, but I want mine to be the best, okay? Mr. Garrett yells at Joshua, are you ready to go to your room? Because I am. Joshua yells back to him, sure, Mr. Garrett, that sounds fine. Joshua asks to be excused from the table. Well, Aricia, Serenity, I'm leaving the table to go to bed, I guess. Well, anyway, girls, good night. Both girls get up from the table and run over and give Joshua a hug. Aricia says to me in my ear, "Sweet dreams." Serenity says, "Yes, have sweet dreams, Joshua." Aricia puts a finger over Serenity's lips and says, "Shh." Aricia and Serenity whisper to each other. "You have not told him yet?" Serenity says. Aricia whispers back, "No, sorry." Joshua had enough of all these secrets. Mr. Garrett yells out, "Okay, let's go." "Hold on, Mr. Garrett," Joshua says. Aricia, tell me what you're hiding from me. I want to know what all this quiet talk is about. "All right, Joshua. When all the people go to sleep at night in your world, I watch them sleep. If anything evil comes to someone's dream, I know immediately and tell the guards to get rid of it. That's my job as queen in this world. When it's too big of a job for my soldiers, I have my guardians and me fight and get rid of it. I watch you in your dreams from afar and really wanted to meet you because you are so different than everybody else. When you put that amulet around your neck, I went to sleep. I could see a crack in your dream and realized you were about to enter my world. So I got up and ran over to where I had a feeling you would show up. Then I stood there and waited for you to show up. Even though, Joshua, you played for 30 minutes in your dream, that's still about 3 hours here, so I had time to dress up for you for my special guest. I'm sorry, Joshua, I kept this from you for so long. I was just afraid how you would react. Aricia, I would not have been mad at you. In fact, it's kind of nice knowing a pretty girl was watching over me. Aricia looks like she went into shock and her face got really red. "Joshua, did you say I was pretty?" in a soft voice. "Yes, that's what I said." "Well, it's getting late. I need to get some sleep." Joshua runs off to his room. Aricia yells behind, "Hey, I wasn't done talking to you yet." "Sorry, Aricia, gotta go." Aricia yells out, "Stupid boy." Serenity and Mr. Garrett start laughing loudly. Then the other servants start laughing with them. Mr. Garrett opens the door and enters the room. "Joshua, you left in a hurry." Mr. Garrett starts to laugh a little bit. "You know, Joshua, usually it's the boy chasing after the girl, not the other way around." "I'm sorry, Mr. Garrett. It slipped out. I got embarrassed." "I'm sorry, Mr. Garrett. Sometimes I say things without thinking." "Joshua, that's a part being human." "Joshua, you did really think she was pretty, right?" "Yes, Mr. Garrett, I did." "Then you have nothing to be ashamed of." "I didn't want to know that it just came out of nowhere." "Mr. Joshua, things like this happen when you like somebody." "Okay, Mr. Garrett, I might like her a little bit more than a little, but please keep this a secret between you and me." "Sure, Mr. Joshua, that won't be a problem. You know, eventually she is going to figure it out." I got in the bed and tried to go to sleep, but after a couple hours I decided I could not sleep. Joshua got out of bed and decided to check on Aricia. Her room was right beside mine. Joshua went on to the balcony to see if it would be easier just to see her from the balcony of the wall in her room. It looked like to Joshua that there was plenty of room. Joshua started walking alongside the wall when he started hearing crying coming from Aricia's room. Aricia was saying something while she was crying, so Joshua listened to what she was saying. Aricia starts speaking loudly to herself. "Daddy, Mommy, why did you leave me? I'm all alone except for 2 friends. I don't know what to do now. I wish I could see your faces just one more time." Then Mommy and Daddy, I could tell you goodbye. Joshua now realized that Aricia was putting on a front, so now on, no one would see her sad. Joshua started having a flashback about the time she grabbed her hand and smiled by the lake. The time she smiled about the Christmas that I was telling her all those times she was crying on the inside. She never stopped mourning over her dad and mom. Joshua's stomach started hurting under the knowledge that Joshua did not think about Aricia, only himself. Joshua was so ashamed. After all, Aricia is just a little kid like me. I went back to my balcony to listen to her, to make sure she was all right. She cried all night. No wonder she was so tired, Joshua thought. Joshua laid his head on the side of the balcony listening to her cry all night. He eventually fell asleep until he started seeing the light of day and the morning birds waking him up. If that wasn't bad enough, he felt someone breathing in his face. Joshua's heart started beating really fast, as if he knew who it was. Joshua sniffed. Yep, it was the smell of flowers. He thought, that can only be one person. It had to be Aricia, Joshua thought. Joshua slowly opened his eyes. At first, all he could see was white. Then his vision became a little clearer, and he could see a nose. Joshua heard her yawn, then her eyes opened suddenly. For a minute, Joshua could see just how blue her eyes were. It was almost like looking at the bluest ocean sparkling in the sun. Then, of course, Joshua screamed after that. Joshua said, surprised, What are you doing? Aricia looked at Joshua. I can ask you the same question. Joshua, I saw you sleeping on the balcony, so I tried to wake you up. Then I thought, well, if I wake you up fast, you might throw yourself off the balcony. So the best thing for me to do is to watch you until you wake up. But then I fell asleep. Okay, Joshua, what were you doing on the balcony? I'm waiting. Well, Aricia, to be honest, I heard you crying and I was worried about you, so I stayed outside until I fell asleep. There's a loud knock on Aricia's door. Both me and Aricia look that direction. Hello, Princess. This is Madame Chelsea. I am coming in. There was a brief silence in the room, then a loud yell. Princess, Princess, where are you? This is Madame Chelsea. Aricia yells out from the other room. I am in the next room with Joshua. Madame Chelsea, I saw Joshua asleep on the balcony in the middle of the night, so I went to go check on him, and I fell asleep watching him. Madame Chelsea, Aricia yells out. Madame Chelsea, so you were with the boy all night? Oh my. Then we hear a loud thud on the floor. Aricia says to Joshua, oh no, I think she fainted again. Joshua and Aricia wake up Mr. Garrett. Aricia shakes Mr. Garrett and wakes up. This is emergency, Mr. Garrett. Mr. Garrett wakes up suddenly. What's the emergency, Your Highness? Mr. Garrett woke up so fast he still was sleepy and not all there. Aricia continues to say, Madame Chelsea fainted in my room. Can you help her? Mr. Garrett quickly says, yes, I will. He starts running towards the door, then he suddenly stops and turns around and looks at Joshua and Aricia with a concerned look on his face. My queen, Aricia, what are you doing in my room? Well, I was worried about Joshua because he was asleep on the balcony, so I came over to watch him and make sure he doesn't fall off the balcony. Aricia, Joshua, do you think I'm a dumb person My queen, even if you were worried about Joshua, you cannot go to his room. And Joshua, you cannot come in her room. It's forbidden. Joshua, you are just a boy, and Aristia, you are queen, and that's all I'm going to say. I'm going to wake up Madam Chelsea, and Aristia, come with me. Aristia looks back at Joshua before she leaves the room. When Aristia and Garrett leave the room, Joshua falls on the bed and begins to think about how blue her eyes were. Then Joshua thought about how he froze and he couldn't do anything else. Joshua says to himself, What's happening? What's going on with me? He says to himself. After things settled down, he went downstairs to eat breakfast. When Joshua got to the dining table, Aristia was already sitting down and eating pancakes. Aristia was woofing him down. Joshua wondered, where did it all go? Joshua sat down at the table. Aristia looks at Joshua. Well, are you going to eat? Sorry, Aristia, I do not have an appetite today. Joshua, are you okay? Aristia asked. Don't worry, Aristia, I'm fine. I just get like this when I know I'm about to leave and go home to the other world. Joshua, will you only be there you'll only be there for one night and one day, then you will be back. Joshua, you can be such a big baby, you know. This place is becoming more and more like my home every day. Well, it's about time for me to go back, so I'm going to go to the balcony. Aristia excuses herself from the table and walks with me to the balcony like always. When we get to the balcony, Aristia stands there and waits for me. Aristia turns and looks at me. Joshua, when you come back, I will have this place decorated for Christmas, and I will show you everything. Aristia, I can't wait to see your castle for Christmas, and of course, to see you. Joshua, having you here for Christmas will be the greatest gift you can give me. Joshua smiles. I feel the same way, Aristia. Aristia blushes. Okay, Joshua. The light of the door starts opening. Joshua takes a deep breath. Aristia runs up to Joshua and gives him a big hug. Joshua, I will see you soon, okay? You will, Aristia, I promise. It won't be long, okay? He faded away, and I found myself in my room again, and it was Christmas morning. That was the end of chapter 7. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you liked it, please subscribe. Thank you.